Check, check. Everybody hears me? Cool. Well, good afternoon. This is your final talk at Scale 13 because there are no other talks after this. So we'll see what we can do to make this awesome. I am Andrew Kirch. I'm the community manager at Xenos. We'll get into that a little bit later. Prerequisites here today, just so you kind of have some idea of what we're talking about and what I expect from you. A basic Linux systems administrator skill set, the ability to install packages from the command line, run a basic bash script, things of that nature, and some devices on your network that at a minimum respond to ICMP ping. Things that will help you in the long run, the ability to write intermediate to advanced bash scripts, some Python, and machines that respond to something more than ping, SNMP, WMI, the ability to install and manipulate SSH keys. So I am Andrew Kirch. I am the community manager at Xenos. My background is systems and network administration, Linux, Cisco, and thanks to this guy, Juniper. I've done lots of monitoring in my career. I started out running a DNS blacklist, and we just needed something that would work, and found a little app called Argus, which runs in PERL. Based on that experience, I got picked up by a company that does a lot of Windows monitoring, and they used a company called Enable, which produces a product called Incentral, and I'll explain why their approach is wrong here in a little bit. And of course, Xenos. And as a systems administrator, I always put the worst thing I ever broke. I accidentally deleted var on the admin server with the Amanda logs that had the entire tape archive on it, resulting in having to manually look through every tape to restore that. It took about 5 hours. So a couple of things we're going to cover today, kind of the story of why you might be here, why Xenos would fix that. I'll do a short demonstration, 30 to 40 minutes, leave plenty of time for Q&A. Kind of give you a tour of the Xenos community, show you where to get Xenos, and we'll do a final Q&A at the end. So, at some time in your life, everybody's gotten some IT infrastructure. It could be your company's first internet connection. It could be a new server. It could be a new virtual machine. And it broke. And when it broke, your phone rang. And when your phone rang, it was your boss who wanted to know why it broke. And you didn't know because you had no idea it was broken in the first place. So you fixed it. The server works now. That's great. And you went to Google and Googled Windows Server Monitor or Linux Server Monitor or Cisco Router Monitor to get a piece of software that would ideally tell you the next time before your boss calls that it's down so that you know that it's down when your boss calls. And so your boss gives you this new app and you installed it. And having learned your lesson before, you went back to Google and you Googled, I need something to monitor this app. And you download that something and install it. And now you've got 2 network monitors and 2 apps. Well, the app crashed and you didn't know, and here's why. Your new monitoring software wasn't monitored by your old monitoring software and vice versa. So when those went down, your app went down and you never found out about it. So now you're going to go to Google and find monitoring software to monitor the monitoring software that you wanted to monitor in the first place. Guys, it's not going to work. The end result is, you're going to be in some place on the journey to this with a network monitor or a server monitor or an application monitor for each of these. It's not a good place to be. You don't want to get here, and you're better off finding a way to get to one monitoring product rather than having 6 or 7. So that's what Xenos does. We're unified monitoring. No matter what you have on your network, if it talks to the network, we can monitor it. SNMP, WMI, SSH. If it supports the standard IETF RFC for SNMP v2 MIB, we can monitor that. Most major operating systems are supported out of the box, and there's documentation both produced by Xenos and produced by our community members that's available to help you get started. So the way Xenos monitors these things is via what we call Xen packs. You're going to note a theme. Everything in Xenos starts with Xen. Xen packs will use a target API or an existing agent to monitor it. We're never going to install an agent on anything. We are totally agentless. That's going to, A, save you from security problems. last year, Nagios had a critical vulnerability where NRPE became a really nice rootkit that you installed it yourself for the nice hacker that was going to come in and use it. We have an open source Zenpack generator. It's going to be replaced by a Zenpack library with 5, but it's a way to rapidly prototype a Zenpack in a Python dictionary, spit it through the Zenpack library, and it will function as a Zenpack without having to do a lot of tedious boilerplate code. Notably, we support CloudStack, OpenStack, AWS, Windows, Linux, Juniper, Cisco, APC NetBots, pretty much anything you've got on your network, we're going to be able to monitor out of the box. So Xenos Core is actually really easy to install. You have a VM with 2 cores, 4 gig of RAM. It has to be 64-bit, of course, for the 4 gig of RAM. We have a script that takes about 30 minutes. It will take at least 3 to 6 weeks on the hotel Wi-Fi here at scale. I did it last year. It never did finish. Let's get to the demo. Questions before we start the demo? I have stunned the room into silence. Excellent.
What about IPv6?
We do support IPv6 in version 4. I knew you were going to ask this. In version 5, we will not be supporting IPv6 immediately, but there will be a patch that's going to come along very shortly. And the reason for that is version 5 is based on Docker. And until version 1.5 of Docker that just came out, Docker had no IPv6 support. There's nothing in our product that's going to prevent IPv6 support, so as soon as we update Control Center to fully support Docker 1.5, IPv6 support will be enabled in version 5. So that was just simply a limitation of the underlying system. So let's...
Zenoss is the only operating.
For 4, that's correct. For 5, we will also be supporting Ubuntu. Since we're going to be in Docker, essentially if you can get an RPM or a deb to install on your system and it runs Linux, we can support it. I should say it runs Linux and it'll run Docker. So it should run on SUSE. We won't necessarily guarantee it. We don't QA that, but yeah, it should work in SUSE as well because again, we're just spinning up Docker instances. So it's fairly simple. So starting out here, this is the Xenos Dashboard, and we've got a couple applications running. Let's see if I can zoom out just a little bit. Unfortunately, the resolution on this, well, guess not. Already all the way zoomed out. The resolution on the projector is such that it's kind of squishing my UI, but I can get through that. So this is our map plugin, and the map will show you breakdowns of numbers of devices and the state of those devices per area. If you're an internet network and you have links connecting your various sites, it will draw those links as well. And those links will show up in either red or green, just like the locations, to indicate the status of those links. Moving to events. So we've completely rewritten the event piece for Xenos 4. I don't actually have any events on this system right now because I fixed it yesterday. But to deal with events, we have what we call classes, which are our mappings of events to, let's get one that's useful here. So I want mappings, not classes. Something that isn't esoteric. But what a mapping will do is take any SNMP trap that comes into the system, for instance, or another event, and apply a Python transform based on a simple text expression of what that event contains in it. So from there, your event comes in and actually becomes an event, and we handle that via what we call triggers and notifications. It's called the scale. So we set up a trigger, and in that trigger we have a significant number of options, and you can do multiple queries. So you could say, let's say all devices, severity equals error. Actually, let's say greater than or equals. So you have all sorts of logic here. So greater than or equals 2. So plus device production state equals production. We don't want to know about devices that are decommissioned or in maintenance. So we save that. Let's do one more real quick. We'll do it almost the same. I'll show you how to do escalation. Scale escalate. I can't have hash in it. scale esc. So we can do the same thing here. Do this quickly here. Severity, greater than or equal to, error, and device production state, production, and count greater than 5. So we've set up 2 triggers. So we set up 2 classifications of things we want to know about. Any error that's more important than error, which is a second level. So you have error and then critical, and critical is something is completely down. So, if a service crashes, if a whole host crashes, we want to know. If that event happens 5 times, maybe we want to tell somebody more important. So we'll set up the first, call it scale, and go in here and enable it at the scale. And this is going to send a customizable email. This email is HTML. As you can see, you have the ability to view event details, acknowledge the event, close the event directly from the email. Just, all things you'd expect from your NMS. So let's go one further, and we will do scale esc, submit, enabled, trigger scale esc, add, subscribers. In this case, maybe we want to tell the boss instead of just the NOC people. So you'd add the boss's email account, and this allows you to do escalation in a sane manner. Also allows you to do on-call. Also makes it much easier to do things like on-call after a certain number of events, or on-call even when you're in the normal operation day. If you have a group of admins that are doing project work, for instance, and the NOC crew gets overwhelmed. So you have a lot of options there. But let me show you one more thing that you can do in the events. So we'll add a command notification, ID, CMD, submit. So what a command notification allows you to do is, if the host is SSH enabled or WinRS enabled, for Linux or Windows, or for that matter Juniper, you can run an arbitrary command targeting that host. So say, for instance, restart Apache. So what we're saying here is SSH, root at, dev manage IP, run the command service HTTPD restart. So if you're the first time your web server comes down, maybe you just want to try and kick it over. You don't want to tell anybody. The web server went down, let's try and kick it over. Maybe it's one of the web servers in a cluster, and it doesn't matter that one of them's down. Second time, we'll try and kick it over again. Third time, try and kick it over again. But at that 5th time, let's send some emails to somebody and let them know that it's down. So we have the ability to do remediation, and what this is going to do is save you from getting woken up at 2 a.m. Moving on from events, let's get to infrastructure, because this is where some of the more interesting pieces are. I'm going to walk you through one of the hosts that's on the machine here. It actually is the Xeno Server. So the Xeno Server has a number of components. First of all, you have an overview panel with general information. Everything from the current Linux kernel that's being run, the ability to add hardware, manufacturer, model. These are also great with CloudStack or OpenStack. This information will get automatically populated as to which zone or which specific host it's on in OpenStack or CloudStack. So you'll be able to see, hey, this is running on the CloudStack system over there, and you're able to track it down in CloudStack if need be. Makes it a lot easier. So we actually are doing a lot more on this system than just simply monitoring the basic Linux components, but obviously those are there, so let's look at those real quick. We have, and again I apologize, the resolution on this is such that it is cutting my graphs off, but we try and get even something out of this. There we go. But CPU utilization, memory utilization, swap utilization. We'll go back to the rest of those here in a second. Since we run Rabbitmq under the hood, You're able to monitor each of the Rabbitmq exchanges, the main Rabbitmq node, MySQL databases, and again, you're going to get table sizes and other information there. You can also set thresholds for those so that if a table starts to grow uncontrollably, again, you'll get notified. The MySQL server itself, of course, and this will tell you about things like, potentially a collision or, another issue that might be ticking around in your MySQL server. Those will all generate events. So if you're running a LAMP stack, for instance, nice to know that. So what else do we have on this? Go down to the graphs. So we also run memcached. So you add the memcached Zenpack and CPU and memory utilization for memcached, cache efficiency, requests, number of items cached, number of connections to memcached. All these are completely charted. Additionally, we get to Nginx, and the same story here. You add the Nginx details in the Nginx status plugin on Nginx, and it will pull the same data out of Nginx, connections, etc. Also monitors in Windows. This will propagate the software on the system. I don't know that it's going to actually pull this for CentOS, but let's see. Nope, not for CentOS. So the way this is done is actually very easy. In the monitoring templates, you have the ability to set data sources. And these data sources are configured. Here you see, running a check Nginx script against dev manage IP. But you can configure these very easily. And the reason why I say having bash skills is nice is you can whack together a script to dump out some stats in Nginx plugin form, or in Nagios plugin format. And we can take not only that, but any other Nagios plugin that outputs standard format that doesn't require an agent. So it makes it really easy to expand anytime you want to look at Nagios. What else can we show you here? The structure. Oh, got one more machine here I'll show you. Again, this is that gentleman up front's fault. Give you an idea what you get out of network equipment. This is a Juniper SRX220, and it will break out every component that Juniper exposes via SNMP. So base components, VPNs, we're using this VPN as we speak, IPsec policies, bands, actual interfaces, and it'll map the IP addresses on those interfaces. And if I scoot this over, it doesn't have the IPv6 address on it. Usually, because this is on CloudStack and it can't support IPv6 yet. So this is going to have the same limitation that my other machine would have. So questions at this point? Yes?
So it doesn't support IPv6 for connecting to the device, or not even for getting information off the device?
So version 4 does support IPv6. The problem is I'm running this on CloudStack, and CloudStack does not. If I was not running on IPv6, this would be able to absolutely connect to an IPv6 device. In fact, my entire network's IPv6 enabled other than CloudStack. Oh, and you should yell at CloudStack. They aren't IPv6 capable, and they're an Apache project. So they are definitely fair game to be yelled at. If the underlying system supports IPv6, Xenos does support IPv6. With 5, we're going to wait for our Control Center product to be updated with Docker, and as soon as that happens, 5 will support IPv6. And if the host under 4 supports IPv6, 4 will run on IPv6 out of the box. Other questions? Yes? We do have JFlow in the Juniper Zenpack. As far as Netflow data, we do not have Netflow data at this point, but it would not be hard to write a plugin for it. I have not used Sflow at all. Whose is that?
It's not proprietary, it's open, but it's where Netflow is like an assault rifle. Sflow is your sniper rifle.
Okay.
Or your microscope, depending on how you
I would think if the device, even in the CLI, exports the information, it would not be hard to write a script to pull the data.
You need Netflow collector, just like you need JFlow or Netflow collector.
Okay, if that collector exports the data, or if that collector will back end onto Xenos, we can absolutely pull the data out of it. All you have to do is write a shim to move the data across. Other questions? So we've covered devices and events. Everybody's exhausted. I can see everybody's like, I'm just about to sleep. It's over. Well, it is, and they are, but wake up. This is the last talk, guys. After this, you're getting on airplanes or going to dinner. There really is nothing left after this. So, you know, yes.
Okay, sorry, I can't remember the name.
No problem.
Is it possible to monitor different servers on totally different networks from outside?
If there's connectivity, yes. So the easy way to do that is just to set up a VPN. The other thing that you can do, and this is supported by the community in the free version, we have official support in the commercial version, is set up what's called a distributed collector. And what a distributed collector does is it's essentially a Xenos instance that sits out at the remote site and will collect data, collect events, and send those back to the master. So absolutely this can be done. There's multiple ways to do it. It'll be even easier in 5 because we have built-in clustering in our control center product that sits on top of Docker. So you can basically say to a host on that far network, you're now a part of this cluster, you know, as something that runs Docker, and you'll send all the data back to the main. So that's not hard at all. Yes?
Does it have service provider features, or is it strictly an end-user product?
This is strictly end-user. You're looking for like multi-tenancy?
Yeah.
The commercial version does support multi-tenancy. With the Docker piece, just spin up another instance. It's real simple to spin the instances up, and frankly, with the security concerns with any network monitoring system of making it multi-tenancy, that would just scare the daylights out of me. This is a machine that, for instance, would have SSH keys in it that probably are passwordless, as well as authentication credentials to other systems that should be kept behind a firewall. If you're in a situation where you got multiple departments, for instance, as a need for multi-tenancy inside of a single corporate structure, makes a lot of sense to do that. I would deploy an individual instance per each. It is just such a bad idea for so many reasons to do something like that. Sorry, go ahead.
If you do that, can you replicate the rules and stuff that you have?
You will be able to with 5 once we write the migration script 4 to 5. You'll be able to pull data out and put it back in across multiple instances. Absolutely.
Because replicating it.
Yeah, replicating it's the hard part. Totally understand. Yeah, replicating it's the hard part. But we are in the process of producing an export-import script for 5.x, and that will support the ability to pull specific data. For instance, like I was just setting up triggers and notifications. You can take those triggers and notifications out and move into the new system. There's also a script called Zen Backup and Zen Restore, and you can pull out specifically things like triggers and notifications and restore with it today with 4. And to some extent with 5 if you get into the right container in Docker.
I think he's more talking about if you're doing this as a service.
Right.
Templates of, you know, the average customer looks like this.
Right.
Being able to put that average customer appearance into the new instance.
It's Docker. Just clone it. Docker clone. Here's the new VM ID. Fire it up. You're done. Yes. Absolutely. It does propagate automatically. No, we can't because I don't have Flash on the Mac. Let's install Flash real quick. This is what I wanted to do. This is a brand new Mac, so it's the one piece of our interface that good grief. I really don't want to do this. Oh well. Made it through like weeks with no Flash, and now I have to install Flash at an open source show. Killing me. Just killing me.
When are they going to get rid of Flash?
As soon as they rip that network map out and replace it with something that's not Flash, which can't come soon enough now. Our charts are, we're in the process of rewriting everything for HTML5. Are they a sponsor at Scale this year?
Yeah. I don't know.
I didn't think they were.
I thought
So you'll notice that my password is a very secure 8 asterisks. So if you want to log into my laptop later, it's, oh, well, 8 dots then. No, I don't trust you that much. Sorry. Again, the teething problems of a new laptop. On hotel Wi-Fi. So let's go back and continue while that's installing, and I'll show you the network map as soon as it's done. Yes.
The community edition is getting back stuff from the paid version.
So let's cover that on a larger sense of what's different. So the two biggest pieces that you'll notice if you go and send me a wheelbarrow full of cash, which I appreciate it every time someone does, is a piece that we call service impact, which is the ability to essentially map complex applications via drag and drop. So, you know, you've got a web server, for instance, our website, for instance. You have your web servers, maybe Varnish sitting in front of those and MySQL sitting in the back. That would be a very simple explanation. But as you start to break out and create redundancy, maybe one web server doesn't take the entire site down. So with the drag and drop creation, you're able to say, hey, this is degraded. It's not down, but you know, this is something that needs to be fixed, versus a failure that, hey, this is now hard down, and this is something that really, really is important. So that's what service impact does. The other piece is analytics, and analytics is, just as it sounds, it's a business analytics model built on top of Jasper to do more extensive querying of KPIs than what our RD tool can do. Now, in 5.0, we're getting rid of our RD tool entirely, so you're going to be able to do a lot of the same things in 5.0. The only other difference is some commercial Zen packs. The big difference, and the reason why a lot of people move up, is our professional services department will assist you in orchestrating a large installation. There's no device cap in core, but depending on your IT department skill sets, somewhere between 500 and 2,000 devices, it's going to get very time consuming to do all the plugging in under the hood and re-engineering. It gets painful. We have a professional services department to assist with that. That really helps make your life easier. And beyond that, of course, we have our support department, which is busy taking pictures of me right now. Support guy. Just completely threw him under the bus. He didn't see that one coming. So did I answer your question there? Or? Cool. All right. Other questions? Yes?
What's the professional services department that you guys pay for you guys to help with our monitoring?
What professional services will do, that's actually a great question. We did first of all, go to the YouTube, and there's a webinar called Core 2 Commercial that I put on last year that goes way in depth in this. But what professional services does is that they will come out and evaluate your network, whether you're running core or not. There's always going to be some tips and tricks these guys are going to know. They'll put together a plan to go to commercial. Even if you're on Xenos Core, they're not just going to do a straight data dump and migrate. There's going to be things that you're going to want to clean up. There's going to be, you know, issues maybe that exist in your current version of Xenos. They're going to go through all of that. They're going to, you know, bring up that new version correctly scaled for the size of your network, on the correct hardware for the size of your network with room to grow, and it's all going to be implemented with best practices. So, you know, your big advantage is that you're having somebody that's deploying Xenos on your larger network that does, you know, dozens or hundreds of these a year, depending on the size of the customer that you know, they're dealing with. Other questions? So let's move on. Well, let's see if Flash Player's done. I'll show him the network map real quick. This is a fairly basic one because I don't have. All right. Well, all right. We're not doing that.
Why not? You can relaunch the hard frequently. It needs to reload the browser.
Once it does, oh, fine. I don't even know what that. Just be gone. I know it doesn't. Oh, cool. Did it finish? Guess not. All right, so that's still running. I was going to try and show 5 during this talk, but it is still downloading as we speak. So the network map, I will say this, shares the same data with the Google map. This is a geological view of your network. The network map is a subnet-based view of your network, and you know, when devices it knows that devices are connected, it will make those connections in network map. I will say that I'm just going to go ahead and give Owen a zebra to throw at me as I say this. Here, I'm going to get a zebra thrown at me for this. I will say that the network map does have problems with 3FFE IPv6 addresses and thinking that everything with a 3FFE IPv6 address is connected to everything else. And please throw.
Why does he accept 3FFE addresses?
Because there's a variable in the system that you have to add 3FFE to as a non-routable address. That's not in the stock config, but once you set that, it will fix that issue. There's a bug. It's been fixed. It hasn't made it into the product yet. I submitted the bug, so you don't throw too many zebras at the person. Speaking of which, I'm supposed to be throwing these to people that are asking questions. You've asked a few over there. Have a zebra. That was actually on target. Right there. I know you've asked a few, sir. Have zebra. Have zebra. Who else wants a zebra thrown at them? That was actually like 4 reasonably accurate throws. All right, what's the question? Okay. You want to get him a mic?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Cool.
Test.
Whoa.
We formerly had Xenos, and
Okay.
we since discontinued it, and so I'm kind of really here, not so much to ask questions as revalidate that I want it back.
Okay. What were you missing? What was causing you issues when you got rid of it?
Frankly, nothing. It was working great, and we had a fellow come on who was all excited about Zabbix.
Ooh, I know
And-
where this story's going.
Yeah, so,
And you've gotten to Zabbix, and things aren't all wonderful.
well, it just, nobody's doing anything with it.
Yeah,
So, Xenos we understood.
sure. And you'll continue to. The UI, as you can see, hasn't changed a lot. We've done a lot with the underlying architecture. Our UI was completely professionally redesigned when we released version 3. So that UI still is, pretty relevant and pretty up to date now, even though it's about 3 or 4 years old. With version 5, we're putting Docker in under the hood, and a lot of the issues that you probably had the first time you deployed Xenos are no longer issues today, because with Docker, we're going to be able to rip out and replace some of the older pieces of code in our software, they're even older than 4 years, in a manner that's going to be very transparent to the end user as far as patches and as far as pain and suffering, with the ability to just simply say, all right, so this piece here, that Docker container's gone, here's a new Docker container that replaces it, and with Docker plumbing all the data under the hood, it makes it very transparent. You're going to find it's a much better user experience probably than even when you left it.
Just what I wanted to hear.
And from that, as you're getting started, I'm going to give you my card as well. I am the community manager. Oh, guy with cards. That's right, I gave him cards. I'm going to get the zebra back there. I'm going to have him hand the microphone back so we don't drop the microphone. Let's see if I can get a zebra all the way back there. Hit him in the hand. That was the best I could do. I tried. All right, so we've thrown some zebras at people. Hopefully we've answered. Anybody, any last questions before we move forward? Yes?
Roughly how many services or you guys cap out on monitoring? Like, is there like a stop cap or?
No, there is no artificial cap. I said earlier, depending on the skill set of your IT department, if it's very minimal, you can get 500 plus devices on one system running for you. You can get far more than that on 5, by the way. With a really talented IT department, you can cap out at about 2,000 devices. At that point, you're really going to want to look at paying for a commercial license, because the support is going to be a lot cheaper than what you're spending as far as your own staff time maintaining it. That's kind of where the pain point comes in. And that's not artificial. It's a fact of orchestrating complex software. I mean, it takes some serious know-how to be able to do it. I mean, there's exceptions to rules. We've got guys in the community that got 10,000 devices that they're monitoring with Core, but they also have a guy that they're paying about what one of our licenses would cost to make that happen. So, it's a question of which way you want to go, as it is with anything in open source. You can go download an Apache web server tomorrow, but, if you want a, fully set up Drupal stack that's got a web UI to manage the pieces and get, maybe you're going to want to pay somebody a lot of money to do that. It's just a different, what's your priority?
Really,
Time cheaper for your money.
that's a good point, because the reason we went away from it is I can't find engineers that are slick enough to do it.
We do have a lot of engineers in the community. Start getting active on the forums. Start getting active on IRC.
I mean, I was fine with it, but if I handed it to
There's a dozen, every open source product like this gets a cottage industry around it. The solutions providers, trainers, get active in the community. They're definitely there. And I owe you a zebra? Oh no.
That's fine.
That didn't just happen. Now I feel really bad. Oh, well then you're good. So is this. I love it. Other questions before we move on back to the boring slides?
Is that, when it shows a network map of the real map, does it show all the intersects that it makes before it ends up, if it's going from Indiana to Dallas? Would it go to Atlanta and then somewhere else? Would it show all?
Okay, so you're asking like, would it follow a trace route? So yes, if you own every router along that route and you're monitoring every router, it will connect each piece together. So for a service provider, that's going to be a national or a global map of what their backbone currently looks like and what's up and what's down and what's routing and what's not. So yes, absolutely it will. Now, if it's a VPN tunnel, it's just going to show a line from A to B because the VPN tunnel is agnostic to what's in between it. If it's a bunch of routers you don't own, it's not going to show a line at all, as is the case here. This is my home network up in Indianapolis, and then I have a couple line nodes down in Dallas that are monitored. So actually, let me show you how to do that real quick, 'cause that's one thing I have not shown. So how do we get this map with this knowledge and information in these pieces? So under infrastructure, this is drag and drop, and I really haven't gotten into this. So you have locations. And those locations are, configurable. You just put in a street address or, just city, state, zip, doesn't matter. And it will get you a dot that's, reasonably close. And these locations will allow you to, map what systems go to where. This is, Wi-Fi, router, Xenos machine. But what that also allows you to do is, I have the right portlet up here. Let me see if I can get the correct portlet here real quick. Under watch list? No, 'cause that's the... Oh, that's right. It's actually the map now. So what you can actually do is set a base location, and it actually just drops down and gives you the valid location. So let's say I'm a NOC engineer in Indianapolis. I don't need to see what's going on in Dallas. So I don't. And it will go directly to my location in Indianapolis. So that allows you to drill down and keep your NOC team from, surfing around the network to figure out what else is broken in the copious spare time that they have at 3 a.m. Yes?
Do you have to manually tell it where everything is, or if you've got intelligent reverse DNS names that, have some structure to them, can you teach the software that and have it figure it out?
So, yes and no. The software isn't intelligent enough to figure it out on its own. But there is a REST API, and it would be very easy to do an intelligent DNS remapping via the REST API. All you have to do is say, this is the DNS, then move it from no location to this location. So the REST API can pull every device that doesn't have a location, examine that DNS as you just described, and then say, okay, I'm going to spit the correct location back into the API, and Xenos will move that device, and any other associations that it would need from that location will be mapped and modeled to the device then automatically.
And then you said you need to give it a city-state zip?
Well, city-state zip, actual address, doesn't matter, just so long as Google Earth knows where that location is going to be.
If you give it a zip, shouldn't it be able to figure out the city-state?
I would assume so. I've done just zip before, and it does work. I'm sure there's situations where that won't, but again, that would be based on what Google Earth's capabilities are. Questions? All right, so let's get into the community real quick as we go back to the evil PowerPoint. Play from current slide. So we do have a really active community. I know some of the questions, I know I sent that gentleman to the wiki to get an answer. I know I mentioned to you that we have forums and blog and IRC that are a great place to talk to potential consultants, both officially with Xenos and outside of Xenos. No, oh wow, did I get, okay, yeah, this was a restore of an old version. I'll cover the Xempact directory here though, and you'll get to see the URL. So this is the wiki. actually that was not supposed to have a colon after it is the problem. So this is the wiki. There's a wealth of documents on it. 2 interfaces. I've mentioned the API. There's also an interface called ZenDMD, and ZenDMD is a Python command line interface directly into the application. So it's another way to programmatically interact with Xenos. You can plug into it with Chef or Puppet, or you can plug Chef or Puppet into the JSON API. But either give you the ability to dig directly under the hood in Xenos in a programmatic DevOps way rather than point, click, drag, add. You can also automatically add hosts, and using those APIs, shuffle them to the correct, taxonomy. Is it a Windows server? Is it a Cisco router? And to the correct location via DNS, as he was describing. So there's example scripts to do all these and to create event transforms. And what event transforms do is allow you to run arbitrary code on an event as it's coming into the pipeline. Before you ever generate a trigger or a notification, let's say there's a specific event or a specific problem that has cropped up before, you can write a transform to dump the text, hey, just reboot this switch into the event so that when the event comes through to the guy at 3 a.m. who needs to triage it, he's going to see, hey, just reboot the switch to resolve this issue. You know, it's the ability to add information, the ability to even just simply dump an event. It's an event you don't care about, evt.drop, and the event goes away. So again, this is Python. It's even for my pathetic ability to use Python, it's very similar. And the wiki is a great place to get, and I love using this picture. I've used this picture at like 3 companies now. It's a great way to get over the learning curve to start using Xenos. So, you know, there's going to be times when you need help. There's going to be times when you're not quite sure what you're looking at. You know, maybe it's a part of the UI you've never used before. The wiki's going to have great information on that. If you can't find it, we have the community website. The community website has a forum, has a blog that I update, you know, occasionally. The one useful thing that you'll find on the blog is the dev hour schedule. So you have trouble writing a transform that doesn't exist, or you need help with a ZenDMD script, or you need help with the API, or you're writing a Zenpack. We have developers from our solutions team, which is what most other companies call professional services, who will come onto IRC and provide 2 interactive hours a week where they'll answer any development-related questions on the product. So it's a great way to really enable the community to, you know, do things with Xenos as opposed to have it just sitting around. You know, you're going to get a lot better value out of the just the open source version using that. We also have IRC. IRC is very active these days. You'll see me on IRC as Trelane. And, you know, questions and answers, again, a great place to talk to members of the community that are consultants, that do training. I always mention training because we've got a woman out of the United Kingdom who is brilliant, and I've had people that are commercial customers of ours come up to the booth during the show just to find out how she's doing because they've loved working with her. So there's really great options in the community. Yes? Yes, I do. This is why this is my designated heckler right here is, you know, I get to find out what I didn't do. And I also need to update the copyright at the bottom, which says 2014. So final shot here, last round for questions. Hopefully I got everybody. I do still have zebras to throw at people. I've got like 4 more. So if you want a zebra, I can throw things at you. Yes?
Can I add my own notification type? For example, if I have a script that sends an SMS message, can I add it as notification type as opposed to having to run script every time as a script?
Absolutely. You would have to write a Zenpack for that, but once you've done that, that would make it really easy to install on hosts on over. And depending on the script, if it's open source or if it's, you know, like a shim to a third party like PagerDuty or VictorOps, a lot of those companies already have open source Zenpacks available to the community to integrate Xenos with their products. Throw this to you without dropping your laptop. Other questions? Who wants a Zenny? Yes. I'm sorry? Yes, it is. And usually it would not be, but I blew up my instance before the show. Actually, I blew it up yesterday. So what I will do is I will re-add a Linux machine that's on my network. So we go to here, we'll add the device. This may be a little difficult with the small screen. Oh, sorry, IP address there. Arduino Yun, server Linux, blah, blah, add. So it will add, and then you'll see that the job's running down there. So it'll be a couple minutes before we get it back. And you have a job queue here, so you can see what it's doing. So it's finished adding the device. Let's go into the infrastructure. I'm going to show you what I think you probably wanted to see, which is how the automation occurs. So everything in the back here is done by templates. There's no flat text config. So we will model a device, and you'll see here in a second when it starts. The device is going to go through, and it will enumerate each resource in the system. So here we're using SNMP, so it's grabbing IP service map, file system map, pull memory, shared memory. There's no swap space on it because it's an Arduino. And with the line that you always want to see, this is going to save everybody that's ever going to write a Xenpack or a script a lot of time. The golden line that you want to see is changes in configuration applied. As soon as you see that, you know that the change that you just made did get applied. So we're going to tell you, hey, when we went and remodeled this, something new was there, or the configuration change that you made. Maybe, hey, don't monitor this file system. That will all be shown as a change in configuration applied. So it's very obvious what you're looking at, and you get an immediate log available with instant feedback. Oh, it's time-based. As soon as I close the modeling window, because then it'll refresh and say, hey, you've got a problem with your file systems. And that's because this shows that it has 0 free space because it's a ROM FS. So we will not monitor it. Go over to the event. Now we actually have an event to look at. So this is the content of an event. And as I mentioned, there are ways via transforms to programmatically edit events, but there's a significant number of variables, and anything that starts with the event you can refer to programmatically as EVT underscore the remainder as a Python variable if you're working in a transform. So it's very easy to say, oh, EVT state, EVT key, EVT group, EVT class map, EVT class key. So it's very easy to find those variables without having to do a whole lot of work in the UI or going through code to find a variable you might need to run a transform. Any questions about events here? Getting towards the end. I got a couple of zebras left. Who wants a foam zebra?
Is there a graphical interface to it?
No, we are strictly web-based and command line. What a lot of people will do is they'll put the dashboard up. The dashboard auto refreshes, and they'll just put a web browser on a Raspberry Pi and hook it up to a TV. So they'll mount a TV on the wall, stick a Raspberry Pi on it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, you could run Firefox in kiosk mode if you really want to.
If you really want, that's a great way to do it. And that's what all the TVs here at the convention, I believe, were Raspberry Pis in kiosk mode. So that's pretty much the standard now. Unless it's actually running on a machine, nobody's going to produce a UI for the machine. Other questions? Oh, I did not. Enable is terrible, and the reason why I actually really love Xenos is Enable had what they called agents that had to be installed at each remote site. These are the remote collectors that we discussed earlier, and probes. And when we finally got Enable by Incentral deployed, I spent 40% of my time at a customer site reinstalling probes that were no longer getting back to agents, or agents that were no longer going back to the main collection hub. It was a nightmare, and if they'd simply used WMI that was built into Windows at the time, or as we do now, Windows RS or Windows RM, to do monitoring with what Windows gives you, it would have saved that customer a whole lot of money and me a whole lot of time doing really tedious work. So good question. Have I already thrown you a zebra? Thought I had. Who else wants zebras? Whoops, that one. So I'll throw again. That was my first missed throw. I don't have any zebras left. That is the end of the zebras. That is the end of the Q&A. If anybody else has questions or wants a business card or needs anything else from me, come on up here and we're pretty much wrapped. Thank you guys very much.